My name is Sebastián Ro. I'm the coordinator of Spaciotech Computer Museum in Argentina, and you're listening to the Scene World podcast.
Okay. So, hello. Welcome to the Scene World podcast. This time with Dennis.
Hello.
And Jörg for the intro. Yes, well, so in a minute, I will be talking to Mike Tucker from Bitmap Bureau about a Xeno Crisis. and interestingly, that is an interview where you haven't been a part of because you couldn't.
Yeah, there was a power outage at my place in Hamburg, and it took around 2 hours. It was terrible and never experienced something like this before in such a huge city. And so I was offline completely.
Wow, and this in 2023.
Yeah.
Almost feels like South Africa, right?
Yeah. Like the moon.
Like the moon.
Yeah.
Alrighty. But before that, we have some news. I don't know, did you also have some news, or are the news on me?
I think the news are up to you.
It's up to me. Alrighty. So, the famous developer Matt Phillips, who did the Tanglewood Mega Drive game, and who came to fame because he bought an original Mega Drive dev kit for that. He announced on Twitter today that he and his team is responsible for the development lead of Red Dead Redemption, so the first part, ported to the Switch PS4, coming on 17th of August. Isn't that something?
Quite an old game, but still alive.
Yes, it's also especially interesting because it has never been ported to the PC.
Mm-hmm.
So people like me who have a Switch, it will be the first time that I can actually experience the game. Which is nice because I have Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PC, and I always felt like something is missing because I never experienced the first part.
All right. So
yeah.
Interesting to see how it technically works on the Switch, how the frame rate is and how graphics
I mean, it was interesting when the latest Doom was released. It was also said that technically it's impossible to port the new Doom to the Switch, but the developer Panic Button made it possible. And then the second game afterwards was Wolfenstein 2, also from Panic Button.
Mm-hmm.
So Bethesda has been really lucky to find those guys that squeeze in the most into that. And you also have to take into account that that the resolution is actually different when the Switch is in docking mode compared to a mobile mode. In a docking mode, you have full HD. In mobile mode, you only have 720p. So that means the games have to alter resolution.
Yeah.
And it also means the frame rate is different, and the game has to be optimized for that. So we know, thanks to Panic Button and Wolfenstein 2 and Doom, that it is possible to port various resource-hungry games to a very weak Switch. But that's also something that always has been a part of ports since the 80s, basically. I mean, think of Lemmings. That was told to be never possible on the C64 and has been ported. Just to name one of those games, And also that will be a topic with Mike Tucker in this interview today, because they also announced, that's also a news part, that you now can pre-order a normal and limited edition of Xeno Crisis for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom. And the interesting thing here is that the Super NES / Super Famicom has a different resolution than the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
So they actually had to alter the play field because they didn't opt for scrolling in the game for the port. So that's actually a thing, you know.
That's correct. I think it's pretty impressive because the Super NES has quite a weak CPU for such action games. I'm pretty curious how this works out.
You will find more about that in the interview because that's a big part of the interview, actually.
Cool,
so don't miss it if you're interested in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and interestingly, there would have been not much to say about the music part, so you would have been not able to nerd out yourself there, because for the Super NES port, they simply added more ROM to the cartridge, and the soundtrack and samples, the digital samples, is all samples. So speech and sound effects and music is all sampled and just played back during the game. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
They did that. So the soundtrack sounds exactly the same as on the Mega Drive. So it's actually the same techniques they did for the Neo Geo / arcade version. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and that is also why the Super
music.
Nintendo. Exactly. And that's also why the Super Nintendo version is a bit more expensive than normal Super Nintendo games nowadays, because of the additional coprocessor and the additional memory.
Okay, interesting.
To get all the sample data in the cartridge. And the calculation. That's also part of the interview.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's not so much to say about the music there. Anyways, more news would be that somebody called Senfa on Twitter, he made a joke video promo about Street Fighter, morphed into Tech Fighter Turbo, play on that fight that's coming up and will be streamed, according to Elon Musk, between Zuckerberg and Elon Musk.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a very, very funny
thing.
It will
happen, if it will happen, actually.
I'm pretty sure it will. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it will. Yes, and also another thing I totally missed, and I found it out thanks to Amazon, actually, because of their, you ordered this, you might like the other. Sorry. You ordered this, you might like the other item too, and that's actually that a new Double Dragon game has been released on the Switch, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5 on the 27th of July, which is awesome because Double Dragon is one of my favorite brawler series.
Yeah.
I have all 3 Double Dragons on the arcade as a PCB. I do have the Double Dragon 2 on this Mega Drive, which is quite rare. And and the NES of Double Dragon 2, the NES version, which isn't rare, by the way. And I also love the C64 version of Double Dragon 2, especially with the converted music by Dave Lowe. Absolutely amazing. So it's actually interesting that there's a new one. It's called Double Dragon Gaiden: Rise of the Dragons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's basically, well, and there's one thing, one last thing. I also found that the article from Gandhi, Lars Subirai, actually from the Amiga Discmac Jurassic Park, has now been published early this year on his homepage in an online text version about why Discmacs have totally gone out of fashion. It's an interesting piece, and he also mentions Scene World as a not very typical demo scene magazine, so it's really worth reading it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And last but not least, you and I and a lot of the staff from Scene World and Eva Ramona Rohleder will be on Gamescom actually. And that will be amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
See you there.
We will present our Disc Mac, and Eva Ramona Rohleder will present her a Twisted Tale point-and-click adventure game. And we also plan, I hope that works, to have a prize giving there. So don't miss out. Yeah, we will most likely be, as always, in the family and friends era at the retro area. And that's actually in Hall 10.2. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah, well, that would be it. And now I would say let's jump to a huge jump to Great Britain and talk to Mike Tucker about a Xeno Crisis.
Enjoy.
Right. Today we have another guest for the podcast, and this time it's Mike Tucker, design director of Bitmap Bureau. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jörg. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Hopefully, I can give you some interesting insights and anecdotes. But
I'm pretty sure. I mean, you are most known for Xeno Crisis, which is a game that's that's still released for new platforms that it hasn't been released before to, and it's amazing because just a few days ago, last weekend, you dropped that the Super Nintendo version is in the works. So it's super amazing, you know.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much finished, but and yeah, we've got other platforms lined up as well. We did sort of quietly announce the Game Boy Advance and PlayStation 1 versions a few months ago, but yeah, even then, we've my colleague Matt and and Gavin in particular, those guys are looking at other ports too. So expect some more news in later this year, I think.
Wow. So normally we begin with the obvious. How did it start for you to get into computers and video games? What was your starting point actually?
I think what hooked me on arcade games in particular was Xevious. So I remember playing that as a kid at a what we call a fish and chip shop. So I was on holiday in Cornwall, which is in the very southwest of England. But yeah, this was early 80s. And back then, arcade games were just everywhere. You know, there was an explosion. So you find them in cafes, recreation centres, pubs, but yeah, fish and chip shops as well. So yeah, I remember my mum and dad taking me to get fish and chips, and there was a Xevious cab, and next to it there was Nemesis, which is the European version of Gradius, of course. And yeah, that just hooks me really, especially Xevious. I think just the amazing cab design and the music really stuck in my head as well. And I just love the game design. And after that, I just wanted to just play more and more games. Really, I think I might have played games before that. I can't really remember, but that's the one game that really sticks in my head. So yeah, that began a love of video games of any type, really. And at school, I had friends with various types of computer. The ZX Spectrum was very popular in the UK. We also had the Amstrad CPC. One of my friends had that, which I think was that known as the Schneider in Germany?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that was quite popular in Germany, from what I remember. I had another friend with a Commodore 64, which was a great machine, BBC Micro, and yeah, we used to just go around each other's houses and just play games. And yeah, if I couldn't get to an arcade, I'd be playing games at my friends, and yeah, I was just absolutely hooked. And I think when I was 10, my parents got me my first computer, which was another Schneider. It was a Amstrad PC 1512, so a DOS compatible, IBM clone, if you like. So yeah, that got me into tinkering with DOS and a little bit of doing a bit of pixel art and some very basic code. And yeah, that was a great starting point for me, I think. So it all built from there. Yeah, my second machine was a Sega Mega Drive. So, I saved up for quite a few months or might even be years, I can't remember, but to get that. And yeah, that had a real impact on me as well. Yeah, when you unbox a new machine, it's magical, isn't it? When you're 12 or 13. So
that's true. That's
yeah,
true.
that was my starting point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit similar for me, but here in Germany, Nintendo was like half of the price compared to the Sega machines. So I had everything in Nintendo instead, because I remember especially for the Game Gear, you could get 2 games for the Game Boy instead. So you get more bang for the bucks, so to speak. But I always heard that in other regions of the world, like UK, it was the other way around.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, weirdly, the Master System really caught on. I mean, it's a great little machine and some cracking games for it. But yeah, I think maybe the Nintendo came a bit later, or maybe the price point was wrong, or maybe people were slightly subdued by the Master System's range of colors. But actually, I would say the better games were probably on the NES. And yeah, looking back, I would have loved to have had a NES before the Mega Drive. But yeah, I count myself lucky to have had a computer when I was 10. My parents worked very hard to get that for me. So and then yeah, to get a Mega Drive, it felt like a good evolution for me.
Awesome. So the love for the Mega Drive is the reason that Xeno Crisis was made for the Mega Drive first, originally?
As part of the reason, yeah. Myself and my colleague Matt, we're both big fans of the Mega Drive, but we had to thank Stefan de Longueville. He created the SGDK, which was a software development kit specifically for the Mega Drive, which it gives you a very good starting point. So it was largely down to him, but also Matt Phillips, who created Tanglewood. He showed that there was enough interest in new Mega Drive games to warrant a Kickstarter, and yeah, which he succeeded in, and that inspired us to do the same. And yeah, it's
okay, interesting.
It's done well for us, yeah.
Wow, but it's very rare. I mean, I can't remember of any other game that was so much ported on many other systems like Xeno Crisis, and still is ported on new platforms nowadays. And I was actually surprised when last year when I bought the Mega Drive version, I saw that that certain regions of the game was sold out. And normally for games, it's like if the store says it's sold out, that's it. But I just saw like yesterday, you are restocking them. So Xeno Crisis, despite it was originally Kickstarter, if I'm not mistaken, you are still producing more and more copies of the same platforms, including new ones like the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're trying to keep the production run going whilst there's enough interest. But yeah, eventually it'll reach a point where we can't sell any more copies, and we'll probably just stop production, maybe of the Mega Drive. Yeah, for example, we've sold out the American Dreamcast version, so it's probably not worth us doing another run of that. But yeah, my colleagues Matt and Gavin, they're very, very good programmers. And they love a good technical challenge, so they're always looking at different platforms for our engine to support. So yeah, we announced Super Nintendo last week, and there will be more platforms coming later in the year as well.
So let me ask you, how did that idea of Xeno Crisis happen to be? I mean, for me, as a Commodore 64 user, I always loved Smash TV, the C64 version, and the gameplay is very similar to that.
Absolutely, yeah. And as you're well aware, Smash TV was a sequel to Robotron. Well, kind of, naturally followed on from it, and that in itself was inspired heavily by Berserk. You know, so yeah, those were games that we looked very closely at. And yeah, I was a big Smash TV fan as well, particularly on the Super Nintendo. And I felt like the Mega Drive conversion wasn't too hot, so we felt like we could improve on it a bit there. But we threw in the Alien theme, gave it quite a gritty look and feel, added a great soundtrack, and it all just gelled together. Really, it felt like the right game at the right time, and we had the right team to pull it off with Henk Nieborg leading the art, Catherine Menabde doing the cutscene work. And yeah, Savage Regime, the Swedish maestro, writing the soundtrack. So yeah, it was a good team, and it all just flowed super nicely, which is unusual in game development.
Is that so? What's normally happening, according to your experience then?
It really helps if everyone's on the same page, so to speak. You know, if everyone's got a good vision of how the game is going to end up. And everyone's enthusiastic, it just makes life so much easier. But yeah, sometimes you'll have I don't know, maybe one or two members of your team will they might have who knows, they could have any kind of problem really, but yeah, they might disappear off the radar for a few weeks, or just hit a bit of a wall in terms of progress, whether that's a coder or an artist, maybe even a musician. Yeah, quite often in development you hit a bit of a wall, but yeah, with Xeno Crisis it just flowed really well. So yeah, we were quite fortunate.
One thing that I always hear in interviews is the last 10% is the hardest.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's because you do all the fun, easy stuff first. You know, the lowest hanging fruit, as they always say. And yeah, you sort of leave all off. Subconsciously, perhaps you forget about try to forget about all the boring, techie, nitty gritty stuff. Yeah, like fixing bugs and adding this annoying feature which someone's asked for. So yeah, inevitably, yeah, if you're leaving all those awkward things towards the end, you know, it does make that last 10%. Yeah, probably the hardest part of the development, and the hardest 10% the last 10% can take 90% of your time.
Now the question is, you are doing the game for so many platforms. What was the decision point taken when you decide which features are in which version of the game? For example, if you look at the Steam forums for the Windows PC version, a lot of people asked for patches in the forums to make the PC version look or play identical with the features like the Neo Geo arcade version, but you really didn't do that. The PC version is different in that it uses the 6:9 aspect ratio and putting
16:9, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, 16:9 exactly, and putting more details like displays of how much ammo you have left and so on. But you don't have the talkie additions to the intro like the arcade version. Yeah, on the other hand, so what was the decision point there?
Well, with the modern versions, yeah, they went ahead. They progressed more quickly than the Mega Drive version. Yeah, we actually had a bit of an unfortunate incident. My colleague Matt, he sustained a head injury. He banged it, yeah, real bad. So he was suffering from concussion and migraines for months. And we weren't even sure if we could finish the Mega Drive version at one point. So yeah, I just naturally progressed with the PC version, knowing that, well, hoping that Matt would eventually catch up with the Mega Drive version. So yeah, the PC version and therefore the modern console releases came first. And yeah, it also meant that we had two different code bases. So there's a modern and retro code base. So and there were additions to the Neo Geo version in particular with the voice acting. So at some point we do want to go back and update the PC version with those extras. The feel of the game is largely down to the code, of course. So to actually retrofit that into the code, that could be a bit more of a nightmare. But I mean, we might be able to do something on that front. Because we're actually working on a new system at the moment. So but the problem is, if you do that, you might upset the people who.
That's exactly. Yeah, you are cannibalizing your own market by the people who bought the Neo Geo version as the superior version, and suddenly in Germany you are selling it for 14.99 euros.
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so you are getting more for a lower price just because it's the PC. It's kind of difficult here, right? You cannot please everybody. That's exactly my thought. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we do try to please everybody, but it's a losing battle sometimes.
Wow. Now I made some assumptions for the Super Nintendo version, and I'm not sure if I'm correct, but it sounds like the soundtrack of the Super Nintendo version is actually sampled, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
To sound exactly like the Mega Drive.
Yeah, which will it might surprise people. I'm sure it'll surprise people. It might annoy some people. I don't know. It's such a good soundtrack that it just made sense to sample it and let everyone enjoy it, even the Super Nintendo owners. And I think if we commissioned a Super Nintendo, the SPC 700, rendition of it, I think it would have sounded quite different, probably quite a lot softer. So and also with what we've got in mind for our future titles, it made sense to try out that tech now. So it might annoy a few people, but when it comes to our next few titles, you'll see the benefits of it.
So is that kind of run as a hobby project? Because with Xeno Crisis you have so much success, it more looks like you can make a living out of that by the sheer numbers of copies you're selling over the vast variety of platforms.
Oh yeah, I mean we've always been full-time games industry professionals. Well, professionals, subjective term,
but for the Mega Drive, it's a different.
Yeah, it's a much more niche market, but it's just a fun challenge for us, and just seeing something on the Mega Drive it gives you a real buzz. And I think we feel more at home on the Mega Drive because, previously we've been making games that look retro and try and feel retro, but unless you're working to those specific technical restrictions, it's you're kind of faking it. So to put something actually on the Mega Drive or the Neo Geo or Super Nintendo, it just felt right to us, and we now feel at home, and we found our niche, so to speak. But I mean, the Mega Drive, you're not going to sell anywhere near as many copies on the Mega Drive as you would on the Switch, for example. But it's a bit of fun for us, and it gives us a bit of it helps us with marketing the game as well, because a new Mega Drive game, it's something that catches the eye, I think.
You mentioned Matt Phillips earlier, and I remember he was mostly praised for being one of those mad persons getting an original Mega Drive development kit.
Yeah, he's crazy. No, he's clearly a great programmer. But it probably made his life more difficult. We were using more modern tools. I mean, we still code in Notepad essentially, but using Stefan de Longueville's SGDK made our life a lot easier. And actually testing through emulation rather than going through the hardware all the time is probably a lot quicker and gives you better debugging. So I'll take my hat off to him. But he's it's cool to see someone do it, the traditional way. But it's at the end of the day, people just care about the game, don't they? There's probably not too many people who bought the game just because it was created in such a fashion. But yeah, incredible work.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned troubleshooting and debugging the game in the modern way. How do you actually handle it compared to the Mega Drive having so much clones and different versions? And with the Mega Drive, you have this special situation that in Brazil they are still produced in a modernized but slightly incompatible way to other modern games. What was the point there? Did you actually go try to find all the niche models of the Mega Drive and make the game compatible to there, or did you say we just try our luck and see what's going to work in the end?
Yeah, we needed to acquire every Mega Drive motherboard variant, really.
Really?
Yeah. We went as far as we could. So we got all of the official models. I forget how many there were. We've got something like, I don't know, it must be 30 or 40 Mega Drives in our office.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, we needed to make sure our PCB worked in every single one, because if you just throw it out there and you've got a few hundred people who got this particular, maybe it didn't work on the Mega Drive 2 or the Mega Drive 3. It's going to be very costly to sort out that mistake. So yeah, we're always very thorough. Whatever platform we develop for, we will try to acquire every single motherboard variant, which is very time consuming and expensive, but it just means at the end of it we get a better quality product. And it's very rare that we find a machine that our games don't work on.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think initially our PCB, our Mega Drive PCB did have an issue, but we quickly sorted that out. But yeah, obviously it's you don't want to be recalling like hundreds of cartridges. It's could be a bit of a nightmare.
And on the other hand, you don't want to run into situations like Peprium did, that doesn't work on whole series of certain serial numbers of the PCB of the Mega Drive and stuff.
Oh yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, you can get very complacent, I think. If it looks like it's working on one Mega Drive, you might then assume it works on all. But no, you really do have to try and test it on absolutely everything. Yeah, like the Mega CD, for example. I don't think we got a JVC XI. That's a pretty rare one. We might, not sure about Wonder Mega, but I think it works on the Wonder Mega. But yeah, there's so many mad variants of the Mega Drive. Luckily, Super Nintendo is not as bad. And Neo Geo, I think there were 5 variants, maybe 5 to 7. But yeah, it's a big part of what we do. And if you ever come to our office, you'll see dozens of consoles just
awesome.
Sat on the shelves ready to be tested.
What's your opinion about the clones? How did you go about those?
We did get a Tectoy Mega Drive. We got the Genesis 3. I know it's not a clone, but it's a pretty rough bit of hardware. So yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was the AT&T Games Mega Drive. And this one is brutal. The AT&T Mega Drive, especially the first model they produced for Europe, that was brutal. I remember I got a German version of Dune 2, one of the rare games for the Mega Drive that was released in German for the market in Germany. And when you put the console on the PAL version, because it has a little switch on the bottom, and then the game doesn't start with the warning, this game is for European market only. So for some reason, the early AT games clone of the Mega Drive actually misdetects European games as NTSC for some reason. So That doesn't surprise me. It was a strange machine. We found the audio in particular was just
awful.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot we could do about it really. So yeah, it worked, and that was enough. But yeah, you're kind of fighting a losing battle with some of those systems. Yeah, the hardware's so bad that yeah, you just have to say, yeah, as long as it works, then
wow.
Let people make up their own mind. But I would always try and play on an early Mark One myself, a Japanese Mark One, so you get the best sound and hopefully the best RGB output as well.
Now the thing is, you seem to develop on the 60 Hz NTC version first, because I saw the demo video that you put on YouTube about the Super Nintendo version. You actually mentioned that it's running on a 60 Hz a Famicom rather than a 50 Hz Super Nintendo. So you develop on the American consoles first, despite you are a European company, or how to understand?
100%. Yeah, when I got my Mega Drive, it was at the age of 12 or 13 or whatever it was a Japanese 60 Hz system. So to me, that's always been the benchmark. That's how you should play. That's how you should be playing Super Nintendo or Mega Drive or PC
Interesting.
Engine. So when I played on a PAL Mega Drive, I think maybe I played Sonic. That might be one of the earlier games that I played, but it just felt completely off. It's only 16.75% slower, but yeah, it just felt really sluggish, and it has the borders at the top and bottom. So for me, for us, the standard is 60 Hz. That's really how you should be playing games. I know in PAL regions, I know we had 50 Hz enforced upon us. I don't know if that's still the case in Germany. Really, do many people stick to 50 Hz now?
It's still the thing. So even the HDMI TVs and so on are all working with 50 Hz. Yeah.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. That is actually why when the C64 Mini was released, and in America, most TVs to this day can't handle the 50 Hz PAL signal. So many YouTubers had a black pictures when they first tried the European release on the American televisions. They were like, why don't I see anything, But while in Europe we have this fortune that for some reason, I guess it's the same in UK, we can handle almost all the signals.
Yeah, we can, but I always insist on 60 Hz.
It's interesting, super interesting. Never knew that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean 50 Hz was the standard over here, so yeah, it was still around in the PlayStation 1 era, maybe PS2 as well. But with HDMI, I think everything moved to 60 Hz, luckily, from what I remember. I remember Dreamcast games having 50 Hz options as well. But yeah, 50 Hz feels off to me, every frame counts. So, and yeah, when you're playing an arcade game, that's naturally 60 Hz as well. So, yeah. So our games will work on PAL machines, but they will be a touch slower. But PAL players will be used to that, of course.
but you care enough to fix the music speed and so on.
Yeah, we try and keep it as close to the original 60 Hz. I think the main thing is that the action is a touch slower. But yeah, the music naturally, that's really important to us. So it needs to play at the proper speed, yeah.
Which is interesting because back then in the 80s and 90s, most publishers didn't care. They were just looking at the game. It doesn't crash, that's good enough. But many games have the soundtrack playing too slow. I think one of those example was Robocop 3 for the NES. They never released a proper version for the European market. So actually, I had to buy an American version to play the game in the right speed, and getting an American NES so I can play that, because the NES, in contrast to the Super Nintendo and the Game Gear, you cannot easily or at all switch between the two modes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but it's good that I know about this Xeno Crisis being released for NTSC primarily, because I have a switchable Mega Drive. Perhaps I should try it on there and see what it does.
Definitely try 60 hertz. Yeah, you might be surprised. It's I always tell people to get a 60 hertz machine, you know, and I always bought Japanese machines, so naturally, I just grew up playing 60 hertz, and 50 hertz just felt weird. But I get that a lot of people do have power machines.
Yeah. I mean, aside from the nerds like myself, most people don't really care to get their systems multi-region fixed, you know.
Yeah. I think with the Mega Drive, it's quite easy though. It's just a simple switch, isn't it? So I think it's worth doing. Then you get the best of both worlds, and also the region switches worth adding as well.
That's true. Yes, but I only have one game that doesn't work if you don't have implemented the Japanese switch, and that's actually Afterburner.
Oh, really?
It crashes if it can't find the Japanese char set for some reason.
Okay, right. Yeah, I remember Streets of Rage, I think, had a region lockout as well. That was one of the early ones, perhaps. Maybe Streets of Rage 2, but that's going that's testing my memory there.
That's actually super interesting, because the Afterburner release I got from the Mega Drive has no single char in Japanese.
Oh, so yeah, that's right. It wasn't. I don't remember any Japanese text. No, even in the options menu. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so that's strange. Don't know why that would happen.
Yeah. So for some reason they made a lockout for it. Anyway, I mean, nowadays you are more like you buy whatever the cheapest version is. If there is no known difference in the gameplay, you know.
Yeah. I prefer Japanese packaging myself, but actually sometimes the Western packaging is better. But I generally collect Japanese stuff myself. Yeah. Unless you're talking PC games, then it's always the Western releases. Yeah.
So let me ask you one thing. I mean, I saw on the Wikipedia entry of the game, you have much more platforms supported of the original release than that you can order on the store still. For example, in the store, I didn't see the PS Vita version for sale.
Yeah, that was produced by East Asia Soft in probably a limited capacity. I don't know how many, maybe 4 figures perhaps, but they sold out pretty quick, and I think we've only got a couple of copies for ourselves, you know. So unfortunately, you'll probably have to get on eBay to find one of those. They're very hard to come by and very expensive. Same with the Switch.
The scalper market.
Yeah, sorry, but we try to avoid those scenarios because we don't want people paying over the odds for our games. But if a publisher comes to us and they can get our game onto the Switch or the Vita, then it's naturally we have to go for it. But they're not going to do like a run of 100,000 copies or anything crazy like that. They'll just do what they think is appropriate, and if they sell out, they sell out, unfortunately.
Is it actually a secret, or can you spill the beans? What is the most sold version of the game?
Most sold? Depends if you're talking digital or physical.
I mean, anything really. I mean, I guess there's no physical version of the PC release that I know of.
No, not yet. I'd love to do a big box release, but maybe that'll happen one day. I think the Switch, from what I remember, is our biggest seller. The Switch generally, I think, outsells PlayStation and Xbox these days. So, I remember it doing very well on Switch.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. I would have thought that perhaps the PC version is the most sold because it can reach more region of the world. But
okay. Yeah, well, that's what I've heard anyway. But maybe things have changed.
Okay.
You're probably right. I think the PC version would be up there as well. But last thing I heard, the Switch was probably our biggest seller. Yeah.
Wow. So how is it actually? I mean, we mentioned it mentioned it a bit earlier before the recording that you are producing new copies by one person or something. For example, I'm still waiting for my Neo Geo MVS version.
Yeah. So they're all produced by ourselves, like in the house. So yeah, we get the various components made in China, for example. The printing materials are mostly done in the UK. But yeah, we have a warehouse where we put everything together. But yeah, we don't have anyone right now who's dedicated to doing that. We're trying to sort that out because myself and Matt, we spend quite a lot of time putting the copies together, and we'd rather be programming and designing.
Wow.
So yeah, if you get a copy of the game, then it's probably been made by myself and Matt. So yeah, we got involved in every part of the process, even the shipping as well. You know, we'll be wrapping stuff up, putting it into a bag to be given to the Royal Mail. So it's a lot of work. But yeah, we're trying to get more help so we can spend our time doing what we should be doing, really. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, it's awesome that you actually can sell so much copies of a niche market and sell the concept to many modern platforms as well. I guess many people who buy the game never played the Mega Drive themselves because of the age group shifting towards younger people now.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to educate people a bit, I suppose, but if people pick up the Switch version and they've never heard of a Mega Drive, then yeah, it's a shame, but yeah, we're not gonna refuse their money. So. But
True.
yeah, we hope a few people have learnt a bit about the Mega Drive after playing Xeno Crisis. Yeah.
I've seen on the store that you actually offer the Super Nintendo version as a limited edition, and it's a black cartridge. So how much limited is it? Should I pre-order it right away, or can I wait a bit?
We'll send you a copy, don't worry. But yeah, we need to know roughly how many to produce. So we'll probably shut off pre-orders. Well, we're shipping in December, so we might shut off pre-orders in November, for example.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
and then we'll know how many to produce. But yeah, right now I don't know what that figure will be.
Oh, that's good to know, because we had limited run games earlier in the last episode of our podcast, and we talked about the times where you had 5 minutes and then the pre-order was over. In the early days, and it was like there's even a term for that in English. It's called fear of missing out.
FOMO. Yeah. They were the masters of that, weren't they? Really, and yeah, we like to give people a good amount of time to grab a copy of our games, because not everyone has money to hand during these sort of pre-order windows. So yeah, we don't want people going without our games. So yeah, we usually have pre-orders open for a good few months, and with the standard edition, that will be available for as long as there's interest, really. So hopefully another year or two at least.
Wow. Yeah, I mean the Mega Drive version is now 5 years old, 4 years old.
Pretty much. I think we released the modern versions 5 years ago, and the Mega Drive version came, I don't know, maybe 6 months later. So yeah, it's about 4 or 5 years old, really. Yeah, but yeah, there's still love for it, and we're still bringing it to new platforms, and that will help us with the eventual sequel, which we're hoping to start this year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. We're kind of busy now.
Wow. Well, I mean, I have to admit, I'm very happy that you're still selling the Mega Drive version, because I was very unlucky, because I didn't know about the Kickstarter until it was over. and then I pre-ordered a copy when PyPacker Reader was announced.
Yeah.
And that was having an offer for Xeno Crisis physical release. I was like, okay, I go for that. Then they canceled the project. And then I was like, okay, so I'm buying it secondhand from eBay.
Oh,
and
no,
there it got lost by the postal service during Christmas.
Oh no.
That was like, okay, now I have to order it a third time. Now I'm going and buy it from your store. And that's interesting because in the fine print of your store, you say you don't take care of the import taxes and stuff, but you actually do.
We do. That probably needs updating now. Yeah. Yeah, with Brexit, everything got really messy. And I think everyone was receiving like VAT and duty bills, and it was, for each country it was different as well. But yeah, we're now using, I think it's IOSS. So where we can, we will pay the duty ahead of time, so our customers don't get a nasty surprise when they receive their game.
But the thing is, the limit is 150 euros.
Yes.
That means for my MVS order, I will have a nasty surprise, unfortunately.
Well, we'll try and bump the value down. Yeah, we can say it's a sample or something. So yeah, hopefully you won't have to pay anything on that.
It's interesting because actually your store is smart enough to calculate that in. So the price gets deducted on checkout, but before you sign into the store, you actually the original price for EU, and then it's going down. So okay, the original price was higher. That's probably what I have to pay upon arrival, kind of. So you made it pretty smart. I was very, very surprised. Yeah, because the problem here in Germany is that the postal service charges you for the service of paying it in front of customs for you. So it's €6.90 prepayment fee by the German Postal Service. Thank you. And I was very happy when I saw you already took care of all those IOSS things.
Yeah, it's been painful, but I think the end result is worth it. Yeah, it just makes for a better experience for our customers.
It's actually by law, but many companies don't follow the law, to be honest,
Yeah, I know of one or two publishers who they're a bit loose with the law, and they've got certain practices, which means I can't go any further, but
but actually my original question was, did it impact the sales or the business for you at all in the UK? Because the game was actually, with the Kickstarter going on and so on, it all happened in between. Did that hurt you in any way?
What's this? Do you mean Brexit specific?
Yes.
Yeah. It's an absolute mess, and I had no interest in leaving the EU. I voted to remain, but because 52% of the people who voted in the UK wanted to leave, the government went with that decision, and it's I think it's been a disaster for the UK. Really, it's caused us a lot more administration and paperwork and bureaucracy. It's probably cost us money in terms of pissing off customers based in the EU who want to buy from us. The process has improved since then, but it's still not flawless by any means. So it still annoys me. And hopefully we'll rejoin the EU sometime when people see sense, but it could be sometime yet. I think it could be decades away. Who knows? But it's certainly not done us any favors.
That is actually in particular why it's a shame that the PyPacker deal fell through, because that was like, wow, I'm getting the same game and I don't have to pay extra because they are shipping from Paris. That would have been perfect for me. And I guess many other customers were in the same situation where they were like waiting for a cheaper way of getting the game.
Well, we're working on that as well. we're hoping to be able to distribute from within Europe.
Really? Wow.
Hopefully in the next year or so, but we'll see how developments go. But yeah, that is something we're looking at. Yeah.
So I should have waited with my big orders then.
Oh no. If you need anything, just ask. Yeah, we'll send it to you. It's not a problem. You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to pay. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I mean, Xeno Crisis is so successful that you even have a big black market, unfortunately, on eBay and AliExpress.
Yeah.
So I wonder, are you doing anything against it? I mean, especially our dear Watermelon example, for example, the game has the Peprium has such a strong copy protection that it doesn't work on some versions of the Mega Drive. And for the Xeno Crisis, you didn't seem to go over engineering and putting protection into it.
Precisely.
So I wonder, isn't that kind of painful to say, okay, we are not making the design too complicated, but on the other hand, it means it can be dumped easily and reproduced?
Yeah, well, we always had it in our mind that we wanted to sell the ROM so people could enjoy it through emulation or SD devices. We wanted to produce a PCB that was OG, it's the original sort of tech. So just a 32 megabit cart with no helper chips or anything like that. So yeah, and we did that, and I think we did a good job in squeezing as much out of the Mega Drive and that PCB as we could. The side effect of that was, and also making the ROM available, was that people could very easily put together their own clone carts, which, it sucks. And it was always going to happen. But in some ways, it's we see it as flattery that people are going to those lengths to copy our game. It also happened with the Neo Geo version, and these clone copies are popping up on Amazon as well. And we tried shutting them down, but if you shut down one seller, another pops up, and it's just like whack-a-mole. You can't win. So we just gave up on that, and we just hope that anyone who wants a genuine copy of the game will come to us. But with the Super Nintendo version, we wanted to avoid that if possible. So we have, I think, just the complex nature of the board design itself should be enough to prevent most pirates cloning it, but time will tell.
How do you go about preserving? I mean, at some point, there's also a community which we also interviewed. For example, the Japanese Game Preservation Project.
Oh yeah.
Where they told us a lot of Japanese companies actually protecting themselves against getting archived their stuff, so they don't have a public access to their archive for that reason. So did you think about it long term? What will happen if Bitmap Bureau doesn't exist in the future? And as to say, the Super Nintendo version is now more complex, so it won't be as easy to copy. How about preserving it then?
I've not considered that at all, really. But I think these carts should be around for probably longer than I will. So, I don't know. It's like people in like vinyl records, I guess. We've still got a few collectors out there, but give it another 10, 20, 30 years, will the young generation really care about preserving Mega Drive games? Or I don't know. I can't see it happening, really. So I think this generation might be the last one that really enjoys and tries to preserve those retro games. But yeah, it's not. It doesn't stop me sleeping at night. Let's say, but it's cool that people want to preserve these games, and yeah, especially stuff from the 70s and 80s, which are obviously now at risk of being lost forever. I think that's really important. Because there's so many great titles out there and a lot of unreleased stuff as well. So yeah, if we are able to preserve some of it, that's great. But Xeno Crisis, I think there's enough copies in the world to to last for a few years yet.
Did the sheer success of the game surprise you by its capacity?
Yeah, we were surprised. Yeah, and happy, of course. Yeah, it just meant we could take the company in a new direction. We were just making games for Steam and Switch and Xbox and PlayStation and so on. But as soon as we realised there was a good enough market on the retro side of things, it just really opened our eyes and it made us want to pursue that even further. But of course, we still support the modern platforms. So, we're trying now to make sure that our code base is the same across all versions. But yeah, we still get people send us nice words via Twitter and email and saying how much they enjoy the game. And yeah, we just want to give them something really special over the next few years. Really, Xeno Crisis was, I think I'm really happy with what we did with it, but I know we can do better. So that's
even better. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
So can you spill the beans? What's going to be better in Xeno Crisis 2?
Oh, what can I say? I can't.
I'm sorry for the hard questions today, but
no, these are good. There's going to be big technical changes which I can't talk about. But in terms of game design, I want to have multiple playable characters with their own techniques and weapons. So at the moment, the male and female characters are pretty much the same. So I want to have, to start with 4 very different playable characters. So if you play the game with any of those characters, it will feel quite different. Also, more of adding a bit more exploration, alternate paths, better storyline, Easter eggs, secrets, quite better variety in stage design as well. So I won't go into too much, but it's just going to be a bigger, better experience all around. And Xeno Crisis is very much an arcade game that it might take 40 to 60 minutes. But I want Xeno Crisis 2 to be a game that even after you've completed it a few times, there's still things to see, there's different routes to take. Or maybe if I play this route with this character, it's quite a different experience. So it'll be more of a console title than an arcade title. That's how I see it. So,
does that mean it will be easier because many younger players consider the game too hard?
Yeah, I mean, I think many older players consider it too hard as well. It's been a common complaint of, maybe not a complaint, but a comment that's passed on a lot of the games that I've designed over the years, that they are hard. I think it's just because I grew up playing games in the arcades, and which were always quite brutal anyway. But even throughout the 80s and 90s, games were just generally tough, weren't they? So we need to soften them a bit, and respect the player's time. That's a phrase that I hear quite often. We'll be looking at like save points, more frequent save points, and more difficulty options. And I think when I develop the game, that should be the hard difficulty level, and then I need to soften it from there, really. But even our easy mode is tough. So we've learnt quite a bit with Final Vendetta and Battle Axe as well, that we need to make our games more accessible. So you can expect progress on that front with our future titles.
So it's a bit like Duke Nukem, a piece of cake level.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we did add a casual mode to Final Vendetta, which gives you infinite lives, and yeah, I think some people enjoyed that. But then we had other criticisms where people were saying, "Oh, it's too easy. I completed it on my first go." So yeah.
Now I don't know if it was you who commented on that on the YouTube video, but there was one guy saying that the first boss Shima, she's flashing too hard.
Yeah. A lot of, again, that's a quality of life improvement that we need to consider as well for our other titles, future titles. It might be that we can probably update the modern versions with a feature that turns that off. Because there are obviously many players with photosensitivity issues, so we need to be sensitive to those people ourselves, and do what we can to make their experience more enjoyable.
But I hope I actually was the one that replied saying, I hope you make that optional for people who don't have the photosensitivity issue. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it should be an option. Because for us, the old school gamers, that was just the normal sort of feedback you got from whenever you hit an enemy, particularly a boss, it would just flash rapidly. So we wouldn't take it out. It would be an option that you can turn on and off.
How about a VR release? By the way,
VR. I don't really do VR. It's I don't get on with it. It just makes me feel a bit ill. And I think it's here to stay. Obviously, it's going to continue to evolve. But we're kind of going in the other direction. Modern. I think a lot of the modern big AAA developers are going towards VR and these hyper realistic experiences. But we like providing an alternative to that. But we might be looking at 3D in the near future. So. VR might also become an option, but I don't think I'd be able to develop it myself because of again, the issue I have with motion sickness. So
okay. Okay. Well, I mean, there is an alternative. You could get one for the Game Boy VR.
Ooh. Oh, do you mean the Virtual Boy?
Sorry, Virtual Boy. That's its name. Yeah, I got that totally wrong. Virtual Boy in all red,
it could be wherever. If anything's going to give you a headache, I think it's that thing. But it could be a device that we look at in the future.
Really? Seriously? Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's Nintendo tech, so it shouldn't be too big a jump from. Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance that we've been playing with recently. So, but I mean, it's probably quite far down the list because we've got other bigger platforms that we want to hit first.
So, what is the biggest challenge to convert the game? Which platform? I mean, for the Super Nintendo, you said the soundtrack is sampled, so you just add more RAM to it and. Or bigger ROM, I have to say, bigger ROM, and problem solved. But is it always that easy to make Xeno Crisis compatible and a good experience on all platforms, or was it actually a very challenging one where you were like, "Wow, I'm not sure if we can pull this off"?
Well, I think the Super Nintendo was the machine that gave us the biggest doubts because. It's 256 pixels wide compared to 320, which the Mega Drive and Neo Geo use, also the Dreamcast, and so on. It's a weird display, and the pixels actually to fill a 4:3 aspect ratio screen, the pixels are actually slightly stretched. So we weren't sure how to tackle that. We were considering redrawing all of the artwork. But that would have been very time consuming and we would have lost quite a lot of the fidelity and the detail. So we also considered scrolling the playfield as well. But that's not great if you have two players because you could both potentially end up off screen. So yeah, in the end, we just realised we could take out 4 columns of tiles to essentially make the screen narrower to fit that 256 wide display. And we just needed to rejig some of the map generation code, the room generation code, and that was enough. Actually, we found that it still looked and played fantastically well. But yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, really going down from 320 to 256. But yeah, the other platforms, a lot of it's down to when you're talking about a cartridge-based platform, getting the PCB designed and perfected, that's often months of very expensive work.
Wow.
So yeah, but luckily, we've done that now for Mega Drive, Neo Geo, and Super Nintendo. So that's
and Nintendo 64, or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we did that as well. Yeah, I think that was one of the easier ones actually, from what I heard. But luckily, I don't do too much of the technical coding. That's mostly down to my colleagues Matt and Gav. But yeah, I think Matt did that pretty quick. Yeah, in pretty quick time. So yeah, it wasn't too painful.
How about the Game Boy Advanced? I remember that the Game Boy Advanced actually, when games were ported from the Super Nintendo, the Game Boy Advance often was used to emulate other games' modes. I remember for F-Zero, for example, that on the Super Nintendo it uses Mode 2. But on the Game Boy Advance, I've seen a video about it. They don't have such trickery modes for the graphic modes and scrolling and so on. So they actually emulated some bits. How is it for Xeno Crisis? You are not using any trickery, so it's pretty easy to convert to the Game Boy Advance?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's really a tile-based game. So yeah, the backgrounds are made up of either 8x8 or 16x16 tiles. The sprites are generally 16x16 or 32x32. And yeah, for the more modern platforms, we have to take a different approach where we draw textured triangles or quads. And the Game Boy Advance, I think the architecture is very similar to the Super Nintendo, although the Game Boy Advance version actually was developed first. So
wow, okay.
Yeah, so that was, I think it's about 95% complete. But then Matt and Gavin thought they would have a go at the Super Nintendo for a bit of fun, and that actually came about pretty quickly after we got the PCB design sorted. So yeah, you can expect to see more of the Game Boy Advance in action soon. But yeah, in that one we do have to pan the screen around. But of course, it's only one player, so I think we can get away with that, and it looks and feels pretty nice, actually. Yeah.
But you could use 2 players. I mean, there is a link cable for the Game Boy Advance, no?
That is true, yeah. But with I think we just kept it as one player. Because, I suppose 2 player. I don't know. Maybe it could still happen, but yeah, as far as I know, we're just sticking with one player because. Adding 2-player support will probably be, it could add another, I don't know, 6 months work, who knows. But I think it's just going to be one player, and with a bit of panning, like you see in Final Fight. Final Fight had used panning as well to make everything work on the shorter Game Boy Advance screen.
Or you make it like some releases of Micro Machines, where you just orientation-wise switch the console around, the screen around, and then people can use the buttons and the control, the D-pad as alternative control inputs. That was kind of weird. They did that on the Game Gear. So you had a 2-player mode where you switch the console around, and then you have like weird control mapping, so you can have 2 players on the same consoles.
Yeah, it's really inventive, but sadly we've only got, well, Game Boy Advance only has. Oh no, it's got 2 buttons plus the triggers. But yeah, its control options are a bit limited for Xeno Crisis, unfortunately. But yeah, that's a cool idea, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps you could do it with Xeno Crisis too. I guess when you make a successor, you will also port it to as many platforms as possible.
Yeah, that's it. So we've got all the tech now. So yeah, Xeno Crisis 2 should be getting onto the retro platform should be quite a bit quicker. But yeah, we just have to be careful that we don't over-design the game and that it's not compromised on certain platforms. But yeah, we've got a pretty solid idea of what we can do technically. So yeah, we'll probably start prototyping later this year.
So compromising, is that the reason why you didn't make a Game Boy version? An original Game Boy version, not Game Boy Advanced?
Yeah, I think Game Boy Color has a bit more processing power. So that's more likely to happen. But yeah, again, you've got just the 2 buttons, which is a bit awkward. But yeah, it's not impossible. But yeah, it means recreating all of the artwork for the monochrome screen. So that's where a lot of the work has to go. But yeah, it could happen. Yeah, it's not really a platform we've looked at too much, but it's in the back of our minds, let's say. But yeah, again, as I said earlier, we've got a list of platforms that we want to hit first.
That's actually an interesting thing I didn't really know the answer of, because when I bought the MVS JAMA adapter, the seller from AliExpress, he told me that the MVS version of Xeno Crisis only uses 4 buttons, not 5 or 6. So I guess you are using an alternative input method for the arcade version?
No, it should follow the standard Neo Geo protocol. As far as I know, it's just the standard 4 buttons. Select and start are reserved, I think, by the system anyway, for pausing and so on. So yeah, I'm not sure what you meant by that, but no, it just uses the regular A, B, C, D configuration.
So that means you can't use the fire buttons for directional shooting. That is what I meant.
Oh, I see. Yeah, we didn't go down that route really, because I think it would have been quite fun, but it's probably a feature that only a very few people would use. And again, adding a little feature like that, it might not sound like too much work, but it kind of snowballs, and you could be looking at another 6 months of development, then testing, and yeah, we just didn't consider that it would be worth it really. Also, the game, although it looks like a twin stick shooter, you really need those 2 extra buttons to roll and grenade. So yeah, even if you had the twin stick setup, it wouldn't really be practical to keep letting go of the right stick and hitting the roll or grenade button. So
okay,
yeah, that was another reason why we didn't think it was worth pursuing. But the Dreamcast has got a great twin stick controller, of course, with the trigger buttons for fire and the top button for sorry, what was it? Trigger button to, oh no, it's the left trigger. Sorry, the left thumb button for grenade, right thumb button for roll, I think it was. But yeah, that's the one twin stick controller that works great with the game, other than a PlayStation 4 pad or Xbox controller.
How repetitive is it for you to design the game for so many different platforms? Is it someday like, oh, not the same game again, just a different platform? Or do you actually appreciate the challenge?
There's not too much work involved for me personally. It's just control mapping, and I might get asked my thoughts about 1 or 2 little features like vibration or saving the high scores and settings, that kind of thing. But yeah, the biggest challenge is always how do we get these controls to work on this new controller? But since the game was designed for 3 buttons on the Mega Drive, yeah, if it works on that, then you can probably get it to work on anything after that, really, such as Super Nintendo, PlayStation 1, Switch, N64. It's Dreamcast as well. So yeah, I think you have to aim for the lowest common denominator and work up from there, really. But yeah, it's worked well. It was probably quite fortunate that we designed a game that could work across so many platforms.
Which is interesting that you mention it, because the online playing cloud platform JamGG actually is using Xeno Crisis in its 6-button configuration.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's obviously PyPacker, isn't it? That's their rebranded name. Yeah, I don't know how easy that is on keyboard, but they probably have joypad support, I guess, which helps. Yeah.
I'm always using this, so
okay,
good enough for me.
I'm a keyboard player, so I'm one of those freaks, you know, and I play cross-handed as well. So
wow.
I don't know why. I think it's because of my arcade roots. Yeah, my left hand has to move, my right hand has to, you know, hit stuff. So yeah, I always play like that. Yeah.
So that means I have to, well, reconfigure my head a bit when I play on the arcade machine, knowing that I can't use the fire buttons for redirectional shooting.
Yeah, but you've got the rotational controls, which helps a bit. But yeah, I think the Neo Geo is probably and the Mega Drive, they're probably the most trickiest to control because of the lack of buttons. But yeah, the new Super Nintendo version, of course, feels great with the Super Nintendo pad, with the face buttons to shoot and the triggers to roll in grenade.
Awesome. Yeah, well, so any other future plans you can mention before we end this interview that you can spill the beans of?
We've got so much happening.
So much happening.
so much of it's under NDA, so I'm not even allowed to talk about it. But yeah, we've got a huge title that's going to be announced. I think it's by the end of the year. We're working with a publisher came to us a couple of years ago with a very cool license. So yeah, we're working on a game based on that. And that'll be coming to modern and retro platforms. Then there was another game that they signed us up for. And yeah, since then we've had other approaches. And yeah, we've got other tech that we're working on, which is really going to shake things up. So yeah, anything I can reveal? I don't think so. I think our biggest reveal was Super Nintendo, but yeah, all the other stuff I can't talk about, which is really frustrating.
No problem. I mean, I'm happy enough that you agreed to do this interview. I mean, I'm actually not sure how much other interviews you've done about the topic so far.
Oh, I've done a few on Xeno Crisis. Yeah, it tends to be mostly me because Matt's very busy, and he generally leaves me to these things because generally they don't get too technical, which is good. Anything real technical he has to deal with, but yeah, they don't come along too often, luckily. But yeah, I'm always happy to talk about what we're doing, and yeah, especially Xeno Crisis.
Awesome. So where can people find all the games and the copies and releases? What's the main hub you have?
Well, we've got our own online store, so that's shop.bitmapbureau.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram to a lesser extent. But yeah, our tag is just Bitmap Bureau, so quite easy to find as long as you can spell it. But yeah, we also have a mailing list as well, so we try to keep everyone updated. I'd really like to open a Discord as well, so people can chat to us a bit more freely. So yeah, hopefully that will happen soon as well. But yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch and ask us anything, then yeah, our Twitter DMs are open, or yeah, you can email us on contact@bitmapbureau.com.
Thanks a lot. Thanks
a lot.
Okay.
All right.
Talk to you then. Bye.
Good talking to you. See ya.
See ya.